Hello, welcome to MX Network News. I'm Doshon Farad. Nigeria has officially banned white models and advertisements. The ban on foreign actors and voiceover artists is part of a push to foster homegrown talent. For many years, advertisements that air in Nigeria have starred white actors and have been narrated by people with British accents. As of October, however, that looks set to change as the country enforces a blanket ban on white and other non-Nigerian models and foreign voiceover artists. According to Nigeria's advertising regulator, the ban will cover all non-Nigerian actors representing a sea change in national feelings toward representing the country's native population. Steve Babaiko, who is the president of the Association of Advertising Agencies of Nigeria, says that Nigerian brands would often use foreign faces while international corporations would simply import their global campaigns. However, Babaiko says that a kind of renaissance has occurred in Nigeria over the last 8 years or so. He says a new sense of pride emerging among its young population is taking place and has led to backlash against projects that were obviously shot abroad with foreign models. Taking effect on October 1st, the outright ban expands upon an existing tariff which requires advertisers to pay a hefty price for every foreign model in an advertisement. The hope is that it will also channel more creative projects into the country and help boost opportunities for homegrown talent. Before there was Serena and Venus Williams or Naomi Osaka, there was Althea Gibson. Gibson, the first black Grand Slam winner, broke down barriers in tennis. And on what would have marked her 95th birthday, August 25th, New York City renamed the street in her honor to celebrate the day. Gibson was raised at the Malcolm X Boulevard and West 143rd Street intersection, which is now known as Althea Gibson Way. Gibson, born in 1927, was a sharecropper's daughter from South Carolina who relocated to Harlem in 1929. Her success in tennis began with her winning several local tournaments in Harlem, including those sponsored by the American Tennis Association, an African-American group founded to promote and sponsor events for black players. As a result of her success in ATA championships, Gibson attended college on a sports scholarship. Initially, tennis's segregation in the U.S. frustrated Gibson. A turning point came in 1950 when Alice Marble, a former #1 tennis player, publicly criticized the sport for denying a player of Gibson's caliber the opportunity to compete in the biggest tournaments in the world.
A Negro woman raised in Harlem and went on to become a tennis player with the help of many, many people, and finally wound up being a world's champion. As a matter of fact, the first black woman world's champion of this whole world. And believe it or not, I still am.
According to the Journal of Sports History, Marble, in a letter to American Lawn Tennis, urged Gibson to get a chance to play. Gibson made history in 1951 when, following Marble's letter, she became the first African-American player to receive an invitation to Wimbledon. Later, she made history by becoming the first black player to win Wimbledon, as well as the French and U.S. Opens. She was inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame in 1971. Some of Gibson's family members believe many people aren't familiar with her name or her groundbreaking achievements. Even so, the family is proud of her legacy. Gibson died of respiratory failure in 2003 at the age of 76. In addition to the street renaming, the city of New York intends to erect a statue of Gibson in her Harlem neighborhood. As previously reported by other outlets, she already has been honored with a statue outside of the Arthur Ashe Stadium at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center in New York. To help narrow a home ownership gap among Black and Latino communities, Bank of America is launching new zero down payment and zero closing cost mortgage products to help people in non-white communities buy their first homes. The program, which is called the Community Affordable Loan Solution, will be available to certain markets, including majority Black and Latino neighborhoods in Charlotte, North Carolina, Dallas, Detroit, Los Angeles, and Miami. The loans are subject to rigorous underwriting and are based on credit guidelines, including on-time bill payments, including rent, utilities, phone, and auto insurance payments. Eligibility is based on income and home location. No minimum credit score or mortgage insurance is required. Applicants do not have to be Black or Latino to qualify for the loans. Before applying, applicants must complete a home buyer certification course provided by housing counseling partners approved by Bank of America and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. A.J. Barkley, who was the head of neighborhood and community lending at Bank of America, said in a statement, quote, "Our community affordable loan solution will help make the dream of sustained home ownership attainable for more Black and Hispanic families, and it is part of our broader commitment to the communities that we serve." Well, the Trump saga appears to be never ending. President Joe Biden delivered his sharpest rebuke yet of Republicans and their fealty to his predecessor in an evening speech in Philadelphia on Thursday, alleging that they, quote, thrive on chaos and warning their attempts to undermine democracy could devolve into violence. It was a strident and urgent call to Americans months ahead of midterm elections that will determine control of Congress. Biden's remarks, while billed as an official address, provided the broad contours of his election message heading into the fall. Even as he worked to balance a dose of optimism about the country's future and his own string of recent accomplishments, Biden painted a dark portrait of his political opponents, saying Trump and his followers are threatening the entire American experiment. He named his predecessor within minutes of taking the stage and suggested Americans face an existential choice in the coming elections. Biden attempted to separate Trump's most loyal followers from the Republican Party as a whole, and as he concluded, he sought to strike a more upbeat note, saying it was still within voters' power to rein in the nation's darkest forces. But the heart of Biden's address was a ringing alarm bell about what he called an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our...
After tearing into Republicans for what he calls MAGA extremism and semi-fascism over the past week, administration officials say Biden determined the time was right to provide a more serious, sober reckoning on what he regards as growing anti-democratic forces building across the country. Officials insisted Biden's message wasn't partisan and instead targeted to an extreme wing of the GOP.
History tells us that blind loyalty to a single leader and a willingness to engage in political violence is fatal.
Still, he called on his audience to go to the polls in November and lashed into his predecessor, backed by traditionally apolitical symbols like the United States Marine Band and two Marines who were positioned in a spot where they were on camera throughout the speech. A crowd of about 300 invited guests, a mix of elected officials and dignitaries along with Democratic supporters, watched Biden speak from behind panes of bulletproof glass. It was a short distance away from where Biden formally announced his bid for the presidency in 2019, striking similar themes about the battle for the soul of the nation. White House officials emphasized ahead of time that when Biden warns of the threat to democracy, he is not talking about Republicans as a whole, but those who styled themselves after Trump, the MAGA Republicans, as the administration has deemed them. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said last Sunday that he expects civil unrest in the event former President Donald Trump is prosecuted for mishandling the classified documents that were seized during the FBI raid of his Florida residence.
If there's a prosecution of Donald Trump for mishandling classified information after the Clinton debacle, which you presided over and did a hell of a good job, there'll be riots in the streets.
He said on Fox News' Sunday Night in America, quote, "If there's a prosecution of Donald Trump for mishandling classified information after the Clinton debacle, there will be riots in the street." The FBI chose not to prosecute Hillary Clinton after finding that she accessed classified documents via a private server in violation of federal law. FBI Director James Comey announced the decision not to prosecute months ahead of the 2016 election, saying that no reasonable prosecutor will bring a case in such circumstances. In making the case for Trump's mistreatment, Graham cited Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg's recent admission that the platform suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story after the FBI told the company to be on high alert for Russian misinformation ahead of the 2020 election.
The FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because it turned out after the fact, the fact checkers looked into it. No one was able to say it was false.
Graham also mentioned the criminal probe into Trump's alleged efforts to swing the results of the 2020 election in Georgia by leaning on various state officials, arguing that the decision to prosecute the former president on those grounds could also lead to unrest. Graham was subpoenaed to testify in the probe, but a federal appeals court blocked the order last week, sending the case back to a lower court to determine whether Graham is exempt from answering certain questions given his role as a federal lawmaker. As for the Mar-a-Lago search, a federal judge said last Saturday that partially because of the exceptional circumstances presented, she has preliminary intent to appoint a special master to review the records seized from the property earlier this month. Trump requested the special master in a motion for judicial oversight and additional relief last week. The FBI took roughly 20 boxes of items, including one set of documents marked as highly confidential, as well as binders of photos, a handwritten note, the executive grant of clemency for Roger Stone, and information about French President Emmanuel Macron, according to the released search warrant. Graham's comments also come as the January 6th committee approaches its hard deadline of January 3rd, 2023 to wrap up proceedings. Partisan pressure has intensified in recent months, including from certain Republicans such as Representative Adam Kinzinger, to indict Trump over his role in the Capitol riot. However, it is doubtful that the panelists will be able to produce clear-cut evidence for such a criminal case that's sufficient to pursue the unprecedented action of prosecuting a former president. An artistic effort to unify a community is now blurred in division and controversy. Creators of a taxpayer-funded Black Lives Matter mural in suburban Greenburgh, New York, included an image of Nation of Islam leader Minister Louis Farrakhan, but the town board now wants his portrait removed. At 2,500 square feet, the Black Lives Matter mural on Manhattan Avenue under I-287 is filled with powerful imagery, including depictions of Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. and Dan Roy Henry, two African-American Westchester men killed by police. But some want this piece of the mural painted over due to the inclusion of Minister Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam's controversial leader. FINA supported public funding for the mural, but says it should not include who he considers, quote, a divisive figure. Farrakhan was not in the sketch submitted by the designer. Community activist Clifton Abrams.
The Honorable Minister Farrakhan is a black leader. He did the Million Man March. He had over 1 million people in 1995.
Some communication issues seem to be at play here as well.
I haven't made a decision to do anything. I wasn't really sure where we stood. I was kind of told that all funding could be pulled from the project.
This past Monday, members of the Nation of Islam visited the site as muralist Kendall Art talked about the controversy. The community is waiting to see how this controversy is resolved. I'm Doshon Farad. You're watching MX Network News.
What up, though? You are now watching MX Network, the real voice meet the masses.
911, where's your emergency?
Yeah, I need the cops to come to get.
What's going on there?
And I just killed somebody.
Violence is exploding all over the United States of America. Crimes within the black community are especially being highlighted at this time. Are these crimes a passion, revenge, or is this just a time to kill? Let's examine these horrific stories, and we are praying that the families and loved ones of these victims find some sort of peace and justice.
real voices meet the masses.